Hello everyone, welcome back to today's analyst for 7th of February 2024, where we will be trying to understand the most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now looking at the table of contents, we find that the very first article is regarding a very important issue in Indian economy, that is regarding fiscal federalism, and we will be trying to understand two editorials in the Hindu today. In the next one, we will be looking at a recent novel indigenous method of treating cancer that is known as CAR T-cell therapy. In the third one, we will be trying to understand the recent Election Commission of India's ruling regarding the NCP faction and what are the various provisions regarding the same. And then in the next one, we'll be trying to look at a very important and interesting geophysical phenomena which is known as atmospheric river. And finally, we will be concluding the discussion with the basic understandings of delimitation commission and the various exercises in India regarding the same. Welcome back students, I hope you all are doing well, and with this let us start the very first article. It is regarding a very important economic term which is known as fiscal federalism, and this has been a question which has been asked in the UPSC mains and also prelims, and that is why topic is very important for our prelims with respect to Indian polity and also Indian economy. In GS2 we have issues regarding federalism, and also in GS3 we have the topic of government budgeting, and in this all those particular topics and concepts are linked together. Now the recent context is that recently the Kerala Chief Minister is planning to stage a protest against the union government because recently the centre did what? They imposed a financial embargo that is on the basis of the borrowings that the Kerala government can take, and this is what brings back the focus on the debate of fiscal federalism in India. Now starting with the very basic facts first. See, a particular government, be the center or the state, need to depend on what? They depend on taxes or the revenue. The taxes are direct taxes, income taxes, corporate taxes, right? And indirect taxes such as the GST. Now, wherein these revenues only will be, say, powering all the government initiatives, the government schemes and everything. And that is why the revenues for the government are, are very important. And that is why we find, in a country like India, which is based on the basic structure of federalism or the particular political system in which the powers are divided on the basis of the levels in the government, that is at the central level, at the state level, and also recently at the local levels. So we find that the various powers, especially here, the financial powers are also delegated according to the various levels of the government. And herein, when we talk of the devolution of the financial powers between the different levels of the government, we come across this particular term of fiscal federalism. It is nothing but just the division of financial responsibilities and resources between the different levels of the government in a federation. And let me tell you, India is one. And there are key features as to what actually makes India a federation. The very first I told is the multi-tier structure. That is, the powers of financial responsibilities and resources, they are divided from the union to the state and finally to the local self-governments, that is at the municipal and panchayat level. Next, we find that we have a constitutional body named as the Finance Commission. The Finance Commission is typically doing what? It is devolving the tax revenue between the center and the states. When the revenues are delegated between the center and the state, we come to know as that of vertical devolution. And when the same revenue which is given from the center to the states is divided between various states, that is known as horizontal devolution. And I am repeating and emphasizing on the fact that this tax revenue devolution to the states and also the division of the same is a very important function of the Finance Commission, and it will be giving its recommendation every 5 years upon its constitution by the president of the country, that is India. Apart from that, we also have various government schemes, right? Some schemes are directly funded by the center, some schemes where the funding is coming from the center in one part, and the next, or say the rest of the part of the funding actually comes from the state. So there we have two types of government schemes. One is known as a centrally sponsored scheme, where both the center and the state is trying to contribute. What the center does, it says that okay, I will be giving, say for example, 50% of the entire fund that is required for a particular scheme, right? For example, say PM Kusum and any other scheme, right, which may be centrally sponsored. That means a part of the expenditure is actually sponsored by the government, that is the central government, and the rest of the part is actually contributed by the state government. So here both of them are present, and this is very, very important for us to consider in the next slide. See, and also we have another type of scheme which is known as central sector scheme, such as PM Kisan, which is 100% say given by the central government. No part of the state governments comes here. So we find this is another part where this is, a part of the schemes where the funds, the money is coming from the center and also the state. So herein an indirect feature of the, fiscal federalism. Next, we have also the various taxes I told you, right? Income taxes, corporation taxes. Also, we have the indirect tax known as goods and services tax, where the revenues must be shared between the center and the state. Accordingly, we have central GST, state GST, and also IGST. So here we find that the states are getting a share of almost all of the GST types. And here the main aspect is that the local governments, the state governments, apart from the center, they need some funds to function. And that is what makes, a federation not only politically active, but also economically active. Because not only say we need a state legislative assembly, we need MLAs to function. We need actual powers to the local institutions, such as the state government and also local bodies. And what powers, other than the financial powers? Because the financial powers have some role to play. They have some role to play, or say fiscal federalism has some role to play. That is the very first, is that the financial freedom of say shared revenue and other taxes given by the center to the states, also some of the revenues which are raised by the state government, is giving some decision making power to the state governments. For example, say time and again the state governments may not go to the center to ask for funds, so this is giving them freedom. Next, the state governments are the particular authority, or say the MLAs, they are directly responsible to the local people, and they are more closer to the people than the union government, and that is why they know the needs and requirements of the people. That is why there is this one more important role here. Next, we find that the citizens of a particular state, right, they always hold responsible the state government for any issues. For example, say law and order issues, for example, say income sustainability, poverty, hunger, and so on. They always immediately go to the state government first, not the center. And that is why we find that there is a direct link between the taxes which the states need and also the spending that is required. Then we also have various states in India, right? Some states are rich, such as Gujarat, Maharashtra. They have more resources. Some other states, such as Madhya Pradesh and say Bihar, Jharkhand, right? They lack financial resources due to various historical, constraints, and this makes those states very unequal. And here we find that if the states have enough resources with them, such as tax resources, they can properly compete with other states at a national level. And this is actually what the Niti Aayog also releases a report regarding the same, regarding say the export competitiveness of different states, the social empowerment of various states. And this is actually good, because we can learn another important term here, that is known as fiscal cooperation and also fiscal competition. And we can understand in the aspect of the same, we can also get the competition, healthy competition between various state governments. And here we also find that there can be some say schemes, funds by the central government also, which the central government will tell that okay, you state government, you implement some good measures, you implement some good reforms, and based on those performance I will be giving you more say funds. For example, say many state governments in India have huge amount of dues with respect to the power sector, right? Power distribution company sector. So the central government say okay, you do one thing, state governments, you try to clear up the debt there, then I will be giving you more say funds for say renewable energies and so on. So this is actually a good thing. Next, finally, the development and growth of a particular state also depends on the funds. For example, investment in local priorities and also attracting investment from various business classes. And this will be also, the two of them will be ensuring what? Regional development on all levels. And this is very, very important because many states in India, I told before, they are not at the same level. And here, there are some issues. The very latest budget figures that we have recently obtained from the budget estimates, these figures highlight some issues with respect to fiscal federalism. Now, I have given you a lot amount of data. Please do also find the same from your handout, and wherever you have your notes of fiscal federalism, or if you do not have, make these notes and use this data in your answers. This will definitely enhance the value of your answers. See, the very first is that if you find here that I told, under vertical devolution, the union government gives the state governments the financial resources. That is, if you can see here, has been increasing over a period of time, right? Up to the 14th Finance Commission, it is 42%, that means of the overall tax receipts, right, of the government, of the union government, 42% has to be shared with the state governments. And here in the 15th Finance Commission, what the central government did, or what the Finance Commission did, it said that 41% has to be given to the states, plus 1% is to be given to the union, recently constituted union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. So effectively it is also 42% to the states and UTs of India. So we find that this is the amount of resources that is actually, say, mandated by a constitutional body, that is Finance Commission. But we find that the government's actual share of gross tax revenue that was given to the states was just 35%. And we can understand this is the figure in 2015. The same figure is 30%, that is a drop of 5% in around 7 to 8 years. So this is very concerning. And why this is the same? Because the central government is keeping more of the funds with the center, citing various other expenditures. And also one of the expenditures is actually known as discretionary expenditure. This discretionary expenditure means this is at the discretion or at the authority of the center. It does not need to be accountable to anyone. So this is a kind of a concern, the very first concern. We find the second concern is that the gross tax revenue of the union government actually increased from 14.6 lakh crore in 2015 to 33, that means almost double, that is more than doubles. We find that where the revenues more than doubled, but the transfers to the states, they decreased, right? This is another cause of concern that we can see. The state's share in the same tax of union tax revenue, that is, say, the corporate taxes, the central GST, the income taxes and so on, from there, right, from the union tax revenue only increased from 5 to 10 lakh crore. This is also, the increase is only a matter of 5, but we find that the main increase was more than double in the case of center. Now you also find that the grants in aid to the states, they also declined. Now this is actually a form of, say, money that is given to the state without any, say, particular exceptions and so on. But in recent times there have been some cases where these grants have been linked to some performances, such as I told you, right, the state center can tell the state governments that you do some reforms, I will be giving you some more money. So this is the same thing, that the grants in aid, particularly some states, declined over a period of time, and this is actually impacting those states which are lacking behind in reforms, such as Bihar, Jharkhand and so on. They are lacking behind in reforms, and their share of this particular revenue is being decreased. And if we find that, if we calculate the two kinds of devolution, that is the tax devolution and the grants in aid that is given to the states, which is a non-tax one, we find that the gross revenue that is devolved to the state so far is around declining from 48% to 35% only. So we find that the overall devolution of the fund that is given to the states is very, very low from the center. And we find that the revenue collection through cess and surcharge is also the highest for the center. But there is one more observation here, that the cess and surcharge is not shared with the state governments. The central government do not have any obligation legally to share these resources with the state governments. Now what is cess and surcharge? These are some taxes or charges which are imposed above the taxes. So this is particularly not mandated by any law to be shared with the states. Now also we find that the allocation for central sector funds and the central sponsor schemes, they also increased, and of the total tax collection or total tax revenue, they account for around 12.6%. So while the centrally sponsored schemes are increasing, sector schemes are increasing, we find that these particular schemes, particularly the centrally sponsored scheme where the state governments also need to contribute something, they are actually doing what? They are actually imposing obligation on the states to actually fund more from the state government's own resources. For example, say a particular scheme A. That scheme A is giving, for example, say free rations to the public. Now the government, for example, the central government has told the total fund of this particular scheme is 100 crore. But the government is telling, I am only giving 50 crore. The rest of the 50 crore has to be given by the state government. And this is doing what? This is actually bringing in the state government's resources indirectly, right, under a central scheme. Now many state governments across India are telling that, even, we do not have enough resources, we have to borrow to particularly fund this particular scheme. Now this is putting strain on the state's budget. Next, we also find that the richer states who have more resources, they are actually benefiting from the scheme at the, say, cost of the states which are not developed fully. So where is the debate of interstate equity? Some critics also opine that there is no equality in the kind of particular provisions. Now here let us also understand a case study that is particularly important from the state of Kerala. See, recently Kerala, the central government has imposed a net borrowing ceiling on Kerala, that is to actually limit the borrowings from all sources from the for the particular state government of Kerala. Now here the central government has told that the Kerala particular government right now cannot take any more further borrowing. Also, they cannot take any borrowings with respect to their state-owned enterprises, or say the government, or say the state government companies that are operating under the state finances. So they also cannot take any loans. Now what is the constitutional limit of this condition? See, under Article 293 subclause 3, the state has to obtain the consent of the center to raise any loan. So the center is the more superior authority in here to grant the state governments to give permission to take more loans in any part of the previous loan extended by the center if outstanding. So this is also another condition. But here Kerala also argues in this particular case that the public debt of the state is an entry in the state list. So why the center is interfering in this matter? It is also arguing that the balance is in the public account or the particular account of the state government where, say, the local deposits, the small savings schemes of the people are actually deposited. So the people is, the Kerala government is telling that why the public account is included, that is actually, that cannot be included by the, say, central government. That is within the purview of the state legislative assembly. Also, according to Kerala Fiscal Responsibility Act 2003, the Kerala government has committed to reduce its fiscal deficit to 3% of its state gross domestic product by 2025 to 26. So why the center is again imposing a net borrowing ceiling? That means it cannot borrow any more. So these are the arguments that the Kerala government is giving in this particular case, and with respect to your answers, you can cite this case study. So this was all that was important for this article. In the next one, we'll be looking at a very, very interesting and a novel, treatment to cure cancer. Now, we know that to cure cancer, we have some popular treatments such as, chemotherapy and so on. But the thing is that those are not often very effective and very, very costly. And also, we find that recently, the, particular therapy of CAR T cell therapy is becoming very, very popular because this is a form of immunotherapy, or the case where we use our own defense system, that is the immune system, to fight the tumor cells in cancer. So recently what happened is that the Tata Memorial Hospital reported that Dr. V.K. Gupta is the first patient in India to be freed of cancer cells using this particular CAR T cell therapy. And this is very, very important for prelims, where we need to look at general science issues, and also GS3, where we need to study about the achievements of Indians in science and technology and indigenization of technology. Now this is very, very important. This term is very important, that is known as indigenization. That means this particular CAR T cell therapy was actually was in use internationally, and it used to cost around 3 crore to 4 crore to treat patients with this particular therapy. But this particular therapy right now is driving this cost down to around 30 lakhs. So this is a particularly very innovative way, and also an Indian particular technique with this particular medicine. Now, to understand this, imagine very simple things. Imagine that you are sitting on a bench in a park, right, public park. Now all of a sudden you see from the skies, strange creatures are coming, right? Now these creatures are aliens. Those aliens are coming with their spacecrafts, with their, say, mobiles and all of the UFOs and so on. What they are doing, they are trying to invade the earth. Now this is a very popular recipe for many of the Hollywood and also some Bollywood movies, right? Now all of you who have watched Avengers, they can certainly relate with me, right? All of a sudden many of the strange creatures are coming from various parts of the universe to our own earth. Now imagine the same case when you cut your finger a little, right? A little of blood oozes out, and you soon see that blood also starts to clot on your fingers. But do you think that this was just it? No, because when your fingers was cut, to your own body inside, it happened just the same thing as you were sitting on a park and you saw aliens coming in. When your finger was cut, a lot of microorganism which is surrounding right now, which can be various bacteria, viruses, and various other microorganisms such as fungi and so on, they start invading your particular cut and they enter your bloodstream. And what do you think happens then? There are various, soldiers in our own body that tries to defend ourselves. This is actually our own immune system, and this is actually also powered by a very, very important cell in our body that is also present in our blood cell, which is known as the white blood cell. Typically, if you look at the various cell types in blood, we find that generally there are two types, and here we find that these are the various groups of white blood cell. And among the white blood cell, there is also a very, very popular blood cell which is known as the T cell. Now imagine the case when the particular a disease such as malaria, COVID, or any other disease which tries to invade our body, the immediate response of these T cells, if you look at these T cells here, they look like this with a tiny heading at the top of their head, which is actually known as receptor. Now suppose you are hit with a particular disease such as common cold, such as malaria and so on, even the serious of diseases such as cancer, right? And what happens is that these particular T cells can remember the last time you had a common cold, right? And those remnants, or say the response of your body to that common cold back, say 1 year ago, right? These T cells can remember in their receptors. Now whenever, say in this particular year, God forbid, if you are, say hit with a particular sneeze or cold, these receptor T cells will be remembering that, okay, in the last year this happened, so I need to now go and attack those virus cells. Now this happens in the same way that these particular T cells which are having receptors, they try to assemble together, they form an army, right? And when they get a signal from a particular type of cell, right, and then they go to attack the rest of the virus cells here, as we can see here, right? So this is actually the very basic way which your body fights internally, and on the outside you know nothing. Everything is happening very, very magically inside your body. So this is a very, very interesting way how your body, our own body, tries to understand the disease, the response, and immediately it tries to attack. So this is the very basic way how this particular T cells operate. Now these T cells are very, very important for our say exam also and for this particular therapy too. T cells are having those particular characteristics which are helping the body to launch an attack against any say outside invasion of diseases. Now scientists have thought that why not use the T cells to treat diseases instead of say the T cells being inside our body and themselves treating. Now we can do one thing, we can take out some T cells from our blood cells and you can say use some biotechnological innovations and you can treat some new diseases and some even serious diseases such as cancer, because in normal times when a particular cell of our body is multiplying very rapidly without any particular natural condition, that is actually known as cancer, and these particular phenomena is very difficult to treat. Even the T cells try to avoid the condition within our body only, but sometimes they cannot even understand what is happening. So that is why scientists did one thing, they extracted the white blood cells from our blood. If you can see here, they extracted the blood, and from the blood they separated the various other types of cells and they got this T cell. Now what they did, they tried to attach one special kind of virus shell. This is the virus shell which is actually known as chimeric antigen receptor, which stands for the CAR in the beginning of the abbreviation. So this CAR is actually nothing but the remnant of a virus shell, right? This is actually doing what? This is actually particularly that receptor. You remember the receptor when you were hit with cold, and this receptor remembered that last year you had the same cold. So this receptor is trying to identify those cancer cells and will be trying to attack those cancer cells. So this is actually done outside your body using this technology. The scientists are extracting the T cells, attaching the CAR to the cells, and it is trying to grow millions of these CAR T cells right now. So it is trying to grow this particular thing in the lab for the next 7 to 10 days. When it is multiplied enough, it will be then transfused within your bloodstream, and this will be totally treating the cancer. So this is the simple way in which this CAR-T operation is actually done. Now in our own country, the same therapy is actually given a name, that is known as NexCAR19. This is a type of CAR technology. This is gene technology therapy which is developed by ImmunoAct. This is an Indian company which is bred by IIT Bombay. And here, who can get this particular therapy? Only individuals who are 15 years old, that means children are not yet allowed for the treatment, and who can get treated of the diseases such as people who have a certain kind of blood cancer, right, and who did not yet receive any treatment or say did not respond to treatment such as chemotherapy, and say even if they have received the treatment, they have say temporarily recovered, they have again say relapsed of the same disease. So what happens here, the patients have to give a sample of blood to the clinic and they can come back after 7 to 10 days when their own T cells have multiplied with the CAR antigen, and here after 7 to 10 days the patients will be transfused with these new T cells, and within say 2 weeks the patient will be treated free of cancer. This is actually what has done, and it is very innovative and very progressive report that is coming out, because cancer was actually known to be not treatable and used to inflict a lot of economic and social loss for the country. This particular treatment is a very good way to look at the same. The cost right now is very high, I understand, that is in the matter of 30 to 40 lakhs, but worldwide it costs 3 to 4 crores. So, and also going forward, ImmunoAct is trying to reduce the cost by to around 10 to 20 lakhs. So we are hopeful of the same. Next, we find that there are some side effects. The very first side effect is neurotoxicity. This is a case when the T cells will be trying to go to the brain and attack the neurons of the brain. This can be one minimal side effect. There are some studies which say that this particular therapy has this particular side effect of neurotoxicity. Next, there is also a particular phenomenon known as cytokine release syndrome, when the particular T cells are actually trying to attack the tumor cells, right? When the tumor cells will be attacked, they will be destroyed, and this destruction internally will be creating a lot of inflammation in the body. Now this inflammation is actually what is known as cytokine release syndrome. But again, this is a particular minimal amount of syndrome that has been seen so far. Irrespective of the side effect, this is a very positive news, because people will be treated effectively free of cancer. Now this is a very important news for your prelims and also your mains. In the next one, we look at a very short and brief incident where the Election Commission of India ruled that the Ajit Pawar faction in the Maharashtra, the NCP party, is actually the main, say, faction of the political party, and it allows the use of its party name and symbol for the future. Now what is the issue? What is the main dispute here? This is very important for prelims, where I need to look about polity, Indian polity, and also GS2, where we need to look about the various aspects of elections in India, the Representation of People Acts, and the various other orders of the particular central government here. Now here see, the very first thing when what takes place after a party splits into 2 or 3 factions is that the very first issue is of the leadership. Who is the leader? Who is the leader and who is the actual leader, and who is the actual leader according to the party's history and party's values? These are the various debates which have plagued Indian political parties over a lot of years, and this is the first issue. The second issue is who will be the owner of that particular political party symbol, because we often find that prominent national parties, state parties, and also there are many regional parties in India who are actually known by these symbols, right? Who are actually known by these symbols. In the comment section, I want all of you to comment a few of the famous symbols of political parties in India. So actually you will understand that the symbol of the party, right, is very important for the recognition and also the trust of the people associated with the particular political parties. Now there's various examples here. See, the very recent example before this was the Election Commission of India, who was deciding a dispute within the Shiv Sena factions, which were split into 2 factions, and finally the official name of the party and also the symbol, that is the bow and arrow symbol, right, was given to the Eknath Shinde faction. In 2021, Election Commission of India froze the bungalow election symbol of the Lok Janshakti party, right, because generally the 2 factions were not very clear as to who were actually the real faction, and even the Election Commission of India back then were not able to understand what is actually going on between the split. Also in 2017, the tussles between SP in UP and also AIADMK in Tamil Nadu, they also split, and also the various issues regarding the symbols also were in the focus back then. Now here, what is the main thing here? See, the main thing here is the role of the Election Commission of India in actually choosing and giving the symbols to the various political parties. See, for this we have a particular order known as a Symbols Order 1968. Very important for prelims, the provisions. See, it is applicable to whom? The recognized national and state parties. Very important, because we have understand for the registered but unregistered, unrecognized political parties, the Election Commission generally do not have these particular provisions. What are these provisions? That the para 15 of the order says that the ECI will be empowered to decide on the claims of the rival factions, taking into various all of the relevant factors of the split, background of the split, and various other consultation, also hearings from the individual members and also the individual legislatures. They will be taking a decision. The Election Commission will be taking a decision as to which faction is actually real, and whatever the Election Commission has decided, that is final and binding, right? Now this is for the national and state parties which are recognized. For the unrecognized parties, Election Commission can not say pass a binding order. They can usually advise the factions, and also they can tell that if you are not happy with the internal advisory functions, you can approach the court. Now here, the main criteria that is used by the Election Commission of India to resolve these disputes by taking in facts, circumstances, hearing, is actually the 3 tests which were highlighted during the Sadiq Ali case. Now the Sadiq Ali case is a very famous case and landmark case, which was way back in 1972, which was actually the Sadiq Ali and other versus the Election Commission of India, when actually back then the Indian National Congress's elections and the split due to the same, they were actually challenged before the court of law. And the Supreme Court observed back then you have to do 3 tests. The very first test is the test of aims and objects of the party constitution. That means that every party, right, every political party has a constitution of its own and the objectives, say preambles of the particular political party. So the factions, they need to be asked individually and their values needs to be tested as to whether they abide by the party constitution or not. If not, a new faction will be given and whatsoever. Next, the test of the party constitution will also be done as to how genuine the party constitution is right now. If the members have split, do they believe in the constitution as of now? And if this particular test is also not, say, successful, the election commission will be going to test the majority among the elected MPs and the MLAs. And this is very, very important. This test of majority is very, very important here because this will be determining the final decision of the election commission. Now, the election commission can say, okay, here some of the tests are successful, that is why the split is final, and the election commission will be giving the particular symbol to a particular faction, right? But if the tests are not conclusive, if these are incomplete, the election commission will tell you have to register again, right? You have to register again, you have to get participated in the elections and you have to, say, register for new symbols. Now say one party has staked claim. What happens to the another group? What happens to the group which do not get the parent party symbol? See, before 1997, actually what happened, the election commission used to recognize the party based on the criteria fixed under the symbols order, right? Say, if the faction which broke away, right, and this particular faction is being accorded the status, right, status of the symbols by the election commission. Now, this is doing what? This is undermining actually that the political parties came into power using democratic values of elections and so on. But after elections, if these parties are splitting, right, and these parties after splitting, they reflect an idea that is not actually chosen by the people during the elections. So to counter that, after 1997, the election commission introduced a new rule that the splinter group, that actually the group is split away, that has to register itself as a separate party again. And they can only claim to national and state party status only on the basis of their performance in the recent state or central government elections. So this is actually a good way to go because often the small groups of, say, MLAs and MPs, they split from a particular political party, especially after elections, to join another political party or, say, join another majority to stake elections, and then they claim that we are the actual political party, so give us the status symbol. So election commission, that's why introduced this particular new provision. Now in the next one, we find a very, very important and interesting geophysical phenomena. Now we all understand, we have seen various rivers in our lives, right? The rivers with huge amount of flow of water actually flows across mountains, valleys and plains and finally into the seas and oceans. Now, have you ever wondered, there can be a river which actually is flowing above you, that is in the atmosphere? Like life, everything is possible, right, in the nature. And this is actually what is actually happening right now. And actually this is not a very unusual thing. But unusual right now, what is happening is that the large amount of destruction that is happening in South California, accompanied by strong storms and dangerous, flash flooding, landslides, this is actually what is unusual. And this is one of the extreme weather events that is plaguing the North American continent. Now let us understand what this particular thing actually is. Now we all know that warm air, when particular heat from the sun is warming the waters of the ocean and seas, warm air starts rising up, right? And when this particular warm air, when it rises up to the atmosphere, it cools down and forms cloud. Now imagine a situation when this warming is taking place at a very fast rate, and this warming is taking place at a so fast rate that that the clouds are rising up and they are looking like this. If you look at this particular figure, they are looking in such a manner, due to the rotation of the earth, that these clouds are, arranged in this particular line. And this is actually known as Pineapple Express, because these clouds are actually above Hawaii Islands, which are actually very famous for pineapples. And that is why the weather authorities also gave this name as Pineapple Express. This means that in this particular area of the Pacific Ocean, the water is heating so much that the air is rising up, and due to the rotation of the earth, the air is flowing towards the North American continent, right? Now, is only this particular clouds just air? No, because this air is filled with water vapor and moisture. If you can imagine these, if you can see, this is actually observation from the space, and the width of the particular clouds is actually more than 200 to 400 miles, and it is full of water vapor, it is full of moisture. Whenever this moisture, whenever it is floating over the ocean, is hitting a continent or a mountain, it will be creating rainfall, as we can see here. This particular atmospheric condition of clouds are slowly approaching the continents, and it is hitting mountains. And when it is hitting mountains, we know that when the clouds hit mountains, it rises up. Again, when the cloud rises up, it loses its temperature and rainfall occurs. So the first amount of rainfall, the first instance of rainfall takes place here. And we can find that if there is too much of this rainfall, it will be creating landslides, it will be creating floods in the nearby plains. Next, when this cloud again goes forward, say it will be hitting, say, in the northern mountains of the USA and Canada. And when this is happening, it is creating heavy rain and snowfall in those regions. So this is a particular river which is there up in the atmosphere, because this is not a river, say, of liquid water, but of water moisture. And how this is formed? See, the very first reason is the high amount of insolation, or say solar radiation from the sun. This is the first reason. The second reason is due to bomb cyclones. Now, what are bomb cyclones? See, bomb cyclones look like this, particularly in this condition. A high amount of low pressure area, right, which is located just above atmospheric river. Which means, can you close your eyes and imagine a cyclone which is spinning very, very fast? But we can understand in these bomb cyclones what is happening, that the edge of the cyclones are very, very fierce and strong. Why? Because generally we have two types of air masses here, the cold Arctic air and the moist low pressure tropical air. Already the pressure is very, very low. Added to that are two different temperatures of air, hot and cold. This actually intensifies this cyclone more, and this is actually what is known as bombogenesis, or the creation of bomb cyclones. And it does what? It creates such a strong spinning effect that apart from the rotation of the earth, this propels this atmospheric river to blow more stronger into the North American continent, and this creates more and more water and more moisture to be totally dumped on, say, the North American continent. And this is what is actually now creating more and more rainfall and snow in those regions. So this is a very, very important and very, very potential question for your mains and prelims board. Now, in the last one, we will be discussing about delimitation exercise, because the delimitation of constituencies for the Lok Sabha and State Legislative Assembly is yet to be carried out on the basis of the first census after 2026. Very, very important for your prelims, and let us understand the very basic thing first. See, in India and also in major of the democracy, the main value of election, or the main idea of election, is one citizen, one vote, one value, right? Now you find that in India, particularly, which is a very, very populous country, we have population scattered over India, and also this scattering of population is not often equal. For example, the southern states of India have lesser population compared to the northern states of India. And also we have to understand that the states which more voters, or say with more citizens, they should be getting more seats. Don't you agree? because there are more people there, and if there are more people, there will be more value of the votes there. So generally we find that the states with huge population, generally those states are very very important for elections. That is why, to sort of control those complex calculations, we have in particular political circles which is known as delimitation exercise, which is a geographical exercise. What is done? According to Article 82 and 170 of the Indian Constitution, delimitation is actually fixing the number of seats and the boundaries also. Not only seats but also boundaries of the constituencies in each state for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assembly, right? We already know that India is divided into various states. The states have their boundaries. Further, based on the population of the states, the particular constituencies are also drawn where more or less the delimitation exercises do what? They try to keep the same number of population in all of the constituencies in the country. Same number of population in all of the constituencies. Often this does not take place, but more or less on an average the number is same across all the country, across all the constituencies. That is why we find there are very small constituencies in densely populated states like UP and large constituencies in states like Arunachal Pradesh, which are very sparsely populated. Now here, not only say the states are having say delimitation on the basis of territorial and seats and boundaries, we also have the reservation of seats for the SC and the ST communities based on delimitation exercises. And this is actually done by Delimitation Commission, which is said by an act of the Parliament here. So far we have had 3 exercises of 1951, 1961, 1971. And this is the last, proper exercise which have been done, where the seats of Lok Sabha have been increased to 543. This means that around 10.1 lakh per seat. That means there will be around 543 constituencies in India with around 10.1 lakh people per seat. And this is actually frozen across the 1971 census. Firstly, via this 42nd Amendment Act till 2020, that means this number of seats will be frozen till 2020 levels. Why? Because generally it was seen that the North Indian states were having more population, and also the states and also the seats in their states were increasing. And generally it can be a thing that the major political party in power in particular North Indian states, they can say that okay, let the population increase, we will be having more seats and more bargaining power at the cost of the South Indian states which have controlled population and have lower seats. That's why. So to curb that thing, to curb that political say inequality, this particular amendment was introduced. And apart from this particular provision of this amendment, can some of you in the comment tell me why 42nd Amendment was also important for other reasons? Okay. Now 42nd Amendment froze the limits to 2000. Further, 84th Amendment froze this limit of 546 seats till 2026. And generally, when the census takes place after the say prescribed year, that is say of 2031, then the delimitation will be generally done. But so far in 2021, which were the COVID years, the delimitation, the census was not held. And that is why there have been some political experts which are suggesting that let us not wait for 2031, since the census of 2021 was missed and it is almost 2024 and just after 2 years delimitation is yet due for. Let us conduct the census right now, that is of 2021, and right now let us understand, should we increase the seats or not in this delimitation. Now there are 2 thoughts here. Should we continue the seat freeze which was initiated by 42nd Amendment? That means if you can see, this is the condition of freezing the 543 seats so far. If you can see, the net gain or losses here in cases of states will be majorly in cases of states which are more populous, right? And also in the case when we try to increase the seats to around 848 seats according to the new and updated population of India, we find again the states which more population, they are benefiting here at the cost of the states which are having low population and have controlled their populations here. So either ways these particular states are losing. Now there are some international practices that India can look forward. First, USA, which have frozen their states, seats in their House of Representatives since 1913. Since that, they did not raise this level. But on the other hand, we also have EU Parliament, which have around 700, more than 700 members across from different member countries of the European Union, where they have this digressive proportionality. That means if the population increases of a particular country, the representatives will also be increasing. The number of representatives, they also will be increasing. Now, in the comment section, you let me know which you think is better. Should we keep it frozen or should we increasing to 848? And also keep one fact that the recent Parliament of India, the new building, also has more seats than the old one. So what do you think it is leading to? Now, I thank you all for very much for being a very patient audience here. Now, after this discussion, we have the quiz following up. So I want all of you to please attend the quiz. And like always, till again, all the best. We'll be meeting again soon. Thank you.